Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life.
Welcome to Daily Influence. I'm Gregg-Brooke Koleno. Thank you for joining us for your daily dose of positivity. Joining us today is Stephanie Freiboth. She is the visionary founder of My Empowered Career, a premier human resources consulting firm specializing in strategic talent strategies. With a wealth of experience in crafting custom solutions that align seamlessly with organizational goals, Stephanie is dedicated to demystifying complex employer-employee relationships and propelling companies towards unparalleled growth and achievement. Her commitment to reducing workplace stressors and helping businesses regain momentum makes her a sought-after expert in the field. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Stephanie, could you share the journey that led you to establish My Empowered Career and your motivation behind focusing on strategic talent strategies?
Absolutely. So I have led almost my entire career with I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And it is not because I'm directionless. It's because I figured out shortly after I started in my corporate career that the secret sauce really was curiosity. But it wasn't always like that. I actually, when I started my career, I was doing everything that I thought I should do. So I went to college. I locked in a job with a Fortune 50 company before I graduated. I climbed the corporate ladder. And I felt like I was doing a lot of hard work, but it wasn't getting me exactly to where I wanted to go. And so when I started to flip the script around how does my role fit in with all of the other people around me, the conversations got really interesting. Not only with my front level leaders, but then leaders over leaders over leaders, because it became a much more interesting conversation. And I began to solve much more complex problems for organizations, which actually got me noticed. And so as I've been traversing my career, I've been patted on the shoulder to do a lot of things. And I have a very non-traditional HR career because I worked in the business in a variety of roles. And then I've also worked on the business. And what I found is that there is a significant gap in how people navigate their careers. And this gap really is rooted in our ability to tell our story and to share the value that we have with organizations. And that's how My Empowered Career was born. I noticed this gap and said, we have to solve it. And so not only do we help individuals find ridiculously rewarding careers at any season of life, we also work collectively with organizations on their organizational planning, on their workforce planning, on their succession planning, so that we can leverage the full capabilities of employees in our workplaces.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. In your experience, how does individual empowerment within a team setting influence overall organizational success?
Oh gosh, this is a good one. I think that when people understand themselves, if they understand what motivates them, how they receive feedback, knowing what frustrates them, where their strengths lie, where their blind spots might be, there's an incredible shift that happens in the tone of the conversation with people. The more candor we can have, the more effective organizations can actually be in innovating and solving problems. And so when people actually think about themselves and understand deeply where their values lie and what is most important to them, they can then articulate those things to the organization. The second piece to that is that empowered individuals are far more engaged and they positively influence their peers. And so when you think about that flywheel effect, where one person does something, you gain some momentum, that momentum then carries positively toward others in the organization. And then they can articulate how they feel and what they need and what they want in the organization. And so knowing yourself is so critical.
What are some of the common challenges that you observe when aligning individual goals with team objectives, and how do you address them?
So there's two that stand out to me. One is getting really clear on your personal values. When I work with people, the common disconnect is that they've identified surface values, but they haven't gone deep. So I hear things like, I'm really capable, or I am so good at my job. Those are really important things. So being able to articulate the values that you have so that you can then determine, one, is the organization still a good fit at the season of life you're in? And the second thing is, how do you actually advocate for yourself? So if humor or honesty or family or loyalty are so important to you, it's absolutely critical that you understand, what does that really mean? What does honesty really mean? Is that trust within a conversation with your leader? Is it organizational communication that you desire? Until you get clear on those things, there will always be a disconnect. And the second thing that I would share is that we have to understand what we need and what we want. So there are certain things in our lives that we actually need in order to make that work relationship a beautiful one. Things like what your compensation is, how much time you have off. Those might be the difference between being really happy and engaged and not. But then understanding, what are your wants, and then what are you willing to give up in order to have the life that you want. And many people that I work with will say, right now, flexibility is far more important to me than money. But then, it could be 5 years later that completely flips on its head. And now money becomes more important because their season of life has changed. Maybe they're no longer putting two kids through college anymore. Or they are looking toward trying to buy a new house or a property or get into another business. And so there's so much to be said about understanding your values and what you need and what you want that will really allow you to be clear with the leadership team on what you need.
I think that is so important, having that, for yourself, knowing what you want, but then also being able to clearly communicate that with your employer or future employers on, what matters most to you, so that you have that open dialogue to make sure it's a right fit on both sides.
Oh, I agree completely.
Can you give us an example of a situation where empowering an individual led to a significant positive impact?
This is such a juicy question. I love it. I was working with a sales leader who was trusted by many. She had great results, was exceeding expectations, and on the outside, she looked confident. She looked unshakable, the kind of person that you look up to and say, you got it all together. But on the inside, when we started to work together, she was unclear. She felt out of control. She couldn't figure out how to share her skill set and how they were transferable outside of her organization, or even for that matter, within her organization to get promoted. And that can be very, very frustrating for people. And so when we started working together, these light bulbs would go on. And then all of a sudden, she shared with me that she started sharing the tools that I shared with her, with people like her boss, even the people she was mentoring. And it changed how those conversations were had. And I think she was finally able to put words with how she felt and what she wanted. And she had tools now. So I'm happy that she's using those tools. She's sharing those tools. And that's really what it's about. It's about information sharing so that more and more people can actually get to the root of what they want in life, because it's just, life is short. And so to me, that positive impact had everything to do with her ability to mentor others.
Definitely the ripple in the water, right? Mm-hmm. That perfect example of how you saw that spread out to so many others. That's great. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Stephanie, what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with our listeners who aspire to make a positive difference in the world?
Never too late to reinvent yourself. The person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago is certainly not the person you are today. And the wisdom you have in your toolbox is incredible. You have incredible resources at your fingertips. And when you go through each season of life, pausing to think about the energy that you need, the time that you need, the resources you need, will give you the advantage of either living in the moment and enjoying it or being completely stressed out. So give yourself the space and grace to redefine yourself. You have permission to grow and to be who you want to be in this next season of life.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. I'm so grateful that you were here with us today, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us and sharing your stories and your advice.
Wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
If you want to get in touch with Stephanie, the best way to do so is her LinkedIn, and we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you for being with us today. If today's episode inspired you, make us a part of your routine by subscribing on your favorite platform and sharing it with those around you to help spread that positivity. We appreciate your support. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.